All right, hi everybody. So this is my second digital journal. Happy Friday. I hope all y'all are doing great. So I'm really going to focus today on the challenges with heterosexism, especially in music education. I am going to be looking at notes and stuff, and so if I look down, that's why. The thing is, I'm not quite sure I have a lot of solutions. I'm still brainstorming. So this is just me kind of processing. So it's gonna be very informal. And so yeah, on that note, let's start going. So I think one of the challenges that stems with a lot of challenges is this whole idea about heterosexism and not threatening the heterosexual status quo. And I took that actually from the reading from Martinez. I'm going to take a lot of it from a lot of quotes from him, all about the mestizo gender article. I think it's really interesting, even though he's talking about Latin America. This interrupting this heterosexual status quo is really prominent here, especially when we're talking about um, the LGBTQ plus community. So what I mean, like, I think that one of the challenges that the LGBTQ plus family or community really kind of has to deal with, and one of these structures, because of this structure of like making sure we're not interrupting the heterosexual status quo, is this whole idea about coming out. He again, Daniel kind of mentioned it, but when we come out, like especially just from my experience coming out is a very isolated, individualized experience. And I think like what's really interesting about that is like it's the focus on the individual, and it's focused solely on the individual. So like when we have even when we have our community, we all still have to individually come out, and it's hard to because of the status quo of being heterosexual. We make this ideal about coming out a big deal. It's so big, and so what I almost feel like the struggle is like we're tokenizing people of the LGBTQ plus community, specifically in school, right? Like I think that um, rather than seeing people for people, like even I have an issue with the Prism Club. I think it's a great thing, right? The whole idea about making the community being together, but the community comes together because there are people who are similar, and yet heads still turn, and they're still seen as other. I say we because I'm part of that community, and it's just a very isolated thing. It's really hard to integrate because coming out is so individualized, if that makes sense. Um, so I'm going to kind of move along in music education because of this whole tokenizing thing. I think sometimes we're looked upon by by our sexuality, specifically in the LGBTQ plus community. Um, it's interesting when we are in music education solely as just like a person. When you're heterosexual, you're not seen on like who you are, but what you can do, right? Like there's a focus on being like, oh, you're an incredible conductor, or you're world famous for playing your instrument, or you're an incredible educator. But then when you are part of the LGBTQ plus community and you're, quote, threatening the heterosexual status quo, then you come out, and the whole process of coming out to your students, then you're kind of seen as your sexuality. And you're, like, even though you may be like the same ability as a great conductor or educator, that title is put upon you. And it's hard because you don't want to be just seen as your sexuality. Personally, for me, it's a focus on like it's a part of me. Like my sexuality is a part of me, but it's not just who I am. And so I don't want to just be seen as like I don't want to be tokenized for just my sexuality. And especially music education. I'm going to talk about composers. Omar Thomas is queer and black, and he does incredible music about social justice. But because we're trying to program diverse music, we're seeing him as, I feel like we're seeing him just for his sexuality. Um, or another example in music education is, uh, oh, in like we have so many assumptions about, like, ooh, someone who plays a clarinet is instantly gay. Someone who is on the color guard is instantly gay or lesbian or transgender or queer or anything. And part of the LGBTQ plus community. And again, it's a very isolated feeling. Quickly, you're putting people into a box just based on your assumptions, and you're seeing them for their sexuality, and rather than like the music that they create or the things they can spin or what, you know what I mean? Like, we automatically assign sexuality to a skill set too. It's not just a gender to a skill set, but also a sexuality, because we're, quote, threatening the heterosexual status quo. So I have a minute. I want to just talk real quick about confronting this. I think besides putting up posters and making sure we're doing diverse music, I think that we need to normalize just seeing people for people. And one of the ways that I think we can do this is by, first of all, not making coming out a big deal. That's my first thing. Especially in the music classroom, I think that, like, if I saw people who were gay, in like the books I read or the music I saw or the teachers, then maybe I would have felt more comfortable about coming out. And so I think, for as a music educator, just being you and who you are and not making a big deal. I don't know. I think when we dramatize it, it really is hard to focus on other parts of you. So making a part of you, but not just who you are. I think also just being an ally as well, if you're heterosexual. And so, yeah, so that's all I have. That was super quick. I feel like I didn't have enough to talk about, but thank you so much for listening, and have a good day.